8:35 on your 28th day of May. It dawned on me yesterday when I came into work. Saturday is the 1st of June. Mike Barrett with us, by the way. Saturday is the 1st of June.
Prove it to me. Weather's not making me believe that.
I can't help that. But no, look at the calendar.
There she blows right there. Yeah.
June.
Wow.
That's halfway through the year.
That's all right.
That's
I'm ready.
Yeah, it's flying. Hope you and the family had a good Memorial Day weekend.
We did. How about you?
I was here.
So you had a great one.
Saturday and Sunday were great.
Yeah.
Yesterday I didn't make a cash call winner, so it wasn't as good as it could be.
Yep.
Anyways, we talk good insurance policies. It's a pretty complex industry, and yes, it is an industry out there. We have a bazillion things that we could talk about. Where do you want to go this morning?
You know, one of those topical conversations, if you've been keeping an eye on the national news at all, you've seen all the devastation out of Oklahoma, certainly parts of Indiana, now Iowa, Ohio, as of overnight. With more tornadoes coming. So there's just unbelievable tornadic action happening out there. But on top of that, incredible amounts of rain. The Arkansas River is overly swollen. You've got flooding of historic proportions going on out there. So it's something that I wasn't necessarily going to talk about because we really never say never. Right. I mean, let's know that. But we don't really get tornadoes here, but we certainly can get flooding. But a piece on NBC News yesterday triggered this thought for me. So there was a gentleman, Kerry Sanders was his name. He was standing in the floodwaters, and he was saying, many homeowners aren't going to be covered for this because you have to get flood through the federal program. Wrong, Mr. Sanders, wrong. You can get flood insurance elsewhere. The flood insurance program is a federally run program through FEMA called the National Flood Insurance Program, and there's also private insurance companies out there. Granted, they're like Lloyd's of London, they're excess or surplus carriers that you may or may not have a major comfort level with, although they do pay. I mean, it's an insurance policy. It is a contract. They are obligated to pay the trigger of flood. I've got one private insurance carrier that has a better definition, a broader definition of what a flood is compared to the national program. But what I wanted to throw out there is that let's back it up for a minute and say, let's say we have tornadoes and flooding happening here. Will your traditional homeowner policy cover you? The answer to that is what?
No.
And what? Yes.
No. I was going to say, first off, on the whole subject of tornadoes.
Yeah.
In all my life, I've lived here except for 4 or 5 years or so. And the first time I can remember a tornado in Vermont was the one that came up over EHV, touched down just the other side of Route 5, went through the trees on the way to the Forest and Stream Club. We've had a couple since then, but never in my life before that. And I think that I can't speak for all of our listeners, but I'm sure for the majority of them out there, and one of them has to worry about a tornado, but
right.
You have to be.
Right. Many of us don't worry about earthquakes either. But earthquake's not a covered peril on your homeowner policy. Neither is flood. So in order to get that, you have to specifically choose that coverage. Well, say for the earthquake, the easiest way to do it is purchase an endorsement that's widely available on a homeowner policy where you can say, look, I want to add the peril of earthquake for coverage to my homeowner policy, which is great. For flood, not so easy. You have to go to a separate policy. Would either be through the National Flood Insurance Program or through a private carrier. What is the key difference here? The National Flood Insurance Program has the right to say nothing. They have to insure you. The private insurers, they have the right to say, no. Have you ever had a flood? You have? We don't want you. So that's really it. And they'll pay when a flood occurs, but guess what's going to happen? They're going to non-renew you at the next renewal, and then you'll have no choice but to go to the National Flood Insurance Program. So, but it is available. It can help mitigate costs for you for a period of time, especially if you're loss-free. Now let's go to tornado. What's the one type of wind event we can get here? Hurricanes.
Hurricanes, yeah.
All right. And a tornado, with the weather the way it's changing, who knows what could happen? We had a downspout at a house I was renting years ago, back in 2008. It ripped a telephone pole in half that fed the line to the house, ripped the line off the house, and I got to sit out my front lawn and watch my brother-in-law, at the time I think it was CVPS, but now, of course, the Green Mountain Power, put my power line back in place. So, it can happen. How is wind going to be covered? Now that we've established that earthquake is something you'd have to buy, same with flood, but wind, how is that going to be covered on a homeowner policy? Well, it's going to be covered. Tornadoes, wind. So we're not in an area where we're prone to it, so we're not going to see the limitations necessarily that many policies out west would have. So you may have a 1, 2, or 5% deductible versus your regular deductible that you've chosen, depending on the company that you're with. But most commonly, if you have a $500 deductible for your homeowner policy, that will be for the wind event as well, unless it shows otherwise. It's important for you to know that. But they're not going to define tornado as anything other than wind. Hurricane is wind. So you're going to have coverage for those types of events. So it's important to know that. But the same can be said for comparing California to here. California, there are wildfire scores that are part of the rating process and acceptability for insurance policies. Why? Because they're prone to wildfires. We're really not. So there's no wildfire score here. So you're not going to see that limitation for wildfire scores or for tornadoes. So it's something to think about. But the good news is, unless you have that percentage deductible, and if you have a 1% deductible and $100,000 coverage, your deductible is 1% of $100,000. Okay, so that's the way it's going to be applied.
That's a lot of information right there, and I'm sure
I can throw more.
Like a lot of the listeners. Well, of course you can. That's why we do good policies. I'm sure, like a lot of listeners out there, I had pictured it as just a weather event and that it would be covered. I didn't know that it had to be specific.
Right. And really it's not. I mean, a weather event, I mean, again, once it's defined as flood, once it's defined as earthquake, that's where you're going to have some problems if you don't have those pieces of coverage. But the rest of it really should be there, especially for our region, because, again, we're not heavily prone to hurricanes or tornadoes. But because both can happen, it's good to know that your insurance policy, and again, we're talking in a general sense. So there's a million ways that you can insure your home, many companies that you could be with. So I'm not speaking to everyone because I don't know everyone, but the most common policy is not going to have a specific limitation for tornado or hurricane wind events.
Okay.
So it's just going to be a covered event.
Well, that would lead to one other quick question here as we're running out of time here. What about say there's a wildfire here. Somebody inadvertently started a fire.
Yep.
I mean, like you can remember back when the outside water boilers came out, that seemed to be a common problem.
Very much so, yeah.
Is that would that kind
The good news for us is fire is fire.
Okay.
So there's no difference between a fire that occurred and started in your kitchen from cooking or improperly disposed of cigarette or a wildfire that came up and took your house out.
Cinders
Fire
from
is
a wildfire.
Yeah,
Okay.
fire is fire.
All right.
So that will be a covered barrel.
That's a lot of info, man. I just adjusted my headphones. Well, no, it's important stuff to think about. I mean,
It is.
Especially at the transition of the seasons, our weather is wilder.
It is. And one quick thought, too, is that when an event is known to be happening, so let's say there is a hurricane that has a direct path coming our way. And let's say you're a person who doesn't have insurance, but now you're freaking out. So now you're going, well, I want to add comprehensive coverage to my car because that'll be covered if a hurricane takes my car out. And I'm going to buy a homeowner policy. Well, once that event has been established, companies tend to put a lock on. And they go, you cannot issue new policies at this time because of this known event that is coming. Very similar to why the National Flood Insurance Program and the private insurance carriers say, look, you can buy a flood policy today, but if it's not part of closing for a financial transaction, whether you're refinancing or purchasing a home, it's a 30-day wait. That's because they don't want you buying policies because a known event is coming. That's not insurance at that point. Insurance is there to indemnify you should a loss occur, not, yeah, the loss is coming.
Because it's going to.
Yeah.
All right. So, folks, if you have questions, you can contact Mike at Barrett Insurance.
748-5224. Visit us on Portland Street in St. Johnsbury. We're online, thebarrettagency.com. Google, Facebook, and YouTube is all Barrett Insurance Agency.
All right, Mike. Thanks a bunch. Hope you have a good week. We'll see you next Tuesday.
Absolutely.
All right. Birthday girl Colby Calais coming up next.